Zara lived in a huge white house on a quiet street in Abuja. She had pretty dresses, shiny shoes, and more toys than she could count. But she often felt like a bird in a golden cage. Every day she had to follow many rules. Her father was a very rich man, and he expected Zara to be a perfect daughter. She smiled when people visited and wore fancy clothes at big parties, but inside her heart felt heavy. At night, she looked out of her bedroom window at the faraway city lights, wondering what life was like beyond the tall gates of her home. She knew something was missing, and her eyes filled with tears as she wished for a different life, one where she could be free. Welcome to Royal Beat Tales, a home of interesting stories. One afternoon, Zara's father called her into his study. He wore a long, flowing agbada, a traditional robe embroidered with gold threads, and his face was serious. He told her that he had chosen a husband for her. Zara's heart skipped a beat. She was only 19 and not ready to marry, especially not to someone she didn't love. She tried to protest, her voice shaking, but her father raised his hand to silence her. In their culture, children were expected to obey their parents. Her father's word was law in the house. Zara felt a cold fear in her tummy as he spoke about the man, a rich businessman's son, whom she would soon call her husband. That night, Zara cried into her pillow. She felt like a puppet on strings, with someone else deciding her life. She knew her father would never change his mind, so she began to think of a plan. Zara had never imagined running away from home, but now it seemed like the only way out. She packed a small bag in secret, hiding it behind her wardrobe. Inside, she put a few clothes, a bottle of water, and some money she had saved. Her hands trembled as she folded a simple dress made of Ankara cloth, a brightly patterned local fabric, nothing like the fancy outfits she usually wore. She also took a scarf to cover her face so people wouldn't recognize her. She whispered goodbye to the plush room that had been her prison. The walls seemed to whisper back, asking her if she was sure. Zara's heart pounded like a talking drum as she waited for the right moment. She planned to leave late at night when everyone was asleep. She clutched a small necklace her mother had given her and hoped it would bring her courage. Each tick of the clock was slow and loud. With each passing minute, Zara's resolve grew stronger, but so did her fear. Not wanting to do it all alone, Zara confided in Auntie Bisi, her old nanny who had cared for her since she was a baby. Auntie Bisi was kind and had gentle eyes. When Zara told her about the arranged marriage and her plan to escape, Auntie Bisi gasped and held Zara's hands tight. She promised to help Zara by leaving one of the back gates unlocked. Zara hugged Auntie Bisi, grateful and hopeful that she finally had someone on her side. But as the night of her escape came, Auntie Bisi grew nervous. She worried about what Zara's powerful father might do if he found out. While Zara put on simple clothes and wrapped the scarf around her head, Auntie Bisi paced the kitchen, wringing her hands. At the last moment, fear got the best of Auntie Bisi. She went and woke Zara's father, tears in her eyes, pleading that he stop Zara for her own safety. Unaware of the betrayal, Zara slipped quietly into the dark garden, not knowing that someone was watching her from the house. Zara tiptoed under the pale moonlight, her heart thumping louder than the crickets chirping in the bushes. She pushed gently on the back gate, and to her relief, it swung open. The quiet street outside felt like a different world. Zara could smell the night air, mixed with distant fumes of cars from the main road. She took a step outside the gate, then another. Her legs felt wobbly, but she forced herself forward. Suddenly, a shout rang out behind her. It was one of the guards by the house. He had spotted a shadow moving in the garden and was pointing a flashlight in her direction. "Hey, who goes there?" he barked in a deep voice. Zara froze for a second, panic clawing at her throat. She didn't wait to find out if he saw her clearly. Clutching her bag, she broke into a run. Her sandals slapped against the pavement as she dashed down the street, the guard's alarmed shouts echoing behind her. She didn't know where she was running to. She just knew she had to get far away, fast. As Zara ran through the quiet neighborhood, she heard more voices behind her. The guard must have alerted others. She ducked behind a parked car, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. Her father's mansion was in Maitama, a very rich part of Abuja with wide streets and tall trees. But Zara had never walked these streets alone at night. Every shadow made her jump. In the distance, she saw the lights of the city center glittering. If she could reach the main road, maybe she could find a taxi or a bus. Summoning her courage, Zara left her hiding spot and ran again, keeping close to the hedges. Up ahead, she saw the bright headlights of cars on a larger road. She felt a surge of hope. But just as she reached the street, a black car screeched around the corner. It was one of her father's cars. She recognized the license plate. Terrified, Zara turned down a different road, her breath ragged. She could hear the car engine revving, as if searching for someone. She knew they were looking for her. Zara's heart pounded as she slipped into a narrow alley, hoping the darkness would hide her. She pressed herself against the wall, praying she wouldn't be found as footsteps and flashlight beams swept nearby. After a tense few minutes, the car drove off, and the voices faded. Zara crept out of the alley and wiped the sweat from her forehead. She needed to put more distance between her and her father's men. Ahead, she saw a few motorcycle taxis called Okadas, motorcycle taxis, lined up by the roadside. The riders were chatting and didn't notice her at first. She approached the least crowded one, a young man who looked half asleep on his bike. "Please, I need a ride," she whispered, her voice shaky. He looked up in surprise at the softly spoken girl in the scarf. "Where to?" he asked. Zara realized she couldn't tell him her real destination because she didn't even know where to go. She only knew she had to get far from her father's reach. "Just drive far away from here," she pleaded, holding out some money. The man shrugged, took the money, and started the motorcycle. Zara climbed on the back, holding tight as the bike zoomed off into the night. The wind whipped at her scarf as they sped down the road. Zara didn't look back at the only home she had ever known, afraid that if she did, she might lose her courage. The city lights blurred as the Okada weaved through Abuja's roads. Zara's mind was racing like the scenery passing by. She wondered if her father had found her note. She had left a short note on her bed saying she was sorry, but she had to find her own path. Would he be angry? Would he be worried? Her heart ached thinking of her mother, who would wake up and find her gone. But she reminded herself why she left. She couldn't live like a caged bird anymore. The Okada driver finally stopped in a bustling area that Zara didn't recognize. It was far from the grand mansions and clean streets she was used to. Here, the roads were narrower and the buildings smaller and closer together. She saw people even at this late hour. Some gathered around a street food stall, laughing and talking in a mix of English and local languages. The smell of spicy meat on a grill, suya, filled the air. Zara realized she was in a humbler neighborhood, one where fancy cars and drivers in uniforms were nowhere to be seen. She thanked the Okada driver and stepped off onto the uneven sidewalk, feeling very alone but also strangely free. However, she still had to find a safe place to hide, at least for the rest of the night. Zara pulled her scarf a bit lower over her face as she walked carefully along the street. Her rich, polished shoes felt out of place on the dusty ground. She passed by a small shop where an old woman was frying akara, bean cakes, in hot oil, the delicious smell making Zara's empty stomach rumble. She hadn't eaten since lunch, but she was nervous to talk to anyone or draw attention. She kept walking, passing a group of children playing under a street lamp even though it was late. They were laughing and kicking a small ball, their clothes worn, but their smiles bright. Zara managed a small smile at the sight. It was a simple joy she never experienced in her carefully managed life. Suddenly, someone bumped into her. nearly knocking her down. It was a man in a hurry, and he muttered, "Sorry, sister," before rushing on. The incident made Zara realize that here no one knew her. To them, she was just another person on the street. That was good for staying hidden, but it also meant nobody felt responsible for helping her. She was truly on her own out here, and that thought was scary. Gathering her courage, she decided to find somewhere to rest until morning. She noticed an open doorway where a dim light shone, and she headed toward it, hoping to find a kind soul or at least a safe corner to spend the night. The open doorway led to a small local mosque where a few people were praying quietly on their mats even at this hour. Zara remembered to slip off her shoes and cover her head properly with her scarf. She stepped inside and sat at the back on the cool floor, grateful to be off the streets for a moment. The soft prayers in the Hausa language calmed her a little. It was a familiar sound because her father often prayed in the same way at home. Zara was exhausted. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes for a moment, clutching her bag tightly. Her mind wandered to Auntie Bisi. Why hadn't she shown up at the gate as promised? Did something happen? Zara felt a pang of hurt, fearing that Auntie Bisi might have betrayed her. But she pushed that thought away, not wanting to believe it. She took a deep breath and whispered a small prayer for protection. As she sat there in the quiet mosque, she didn't notice a young man in the corner occasionally glancing at her. Zara was too lost in her thoughts to see that someone had noticed her arrival, and he was now curious about the lonely girl sitting by herself in the middle of the night. After a little while, Zara felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. Startled, she opened her eyes to see a young man kneeling a short distance away. He looked about her age with kind brown eyes and a camera hanging around his neck. "Salam alaikum, peace be with you," he greeted softly. "Are you okay?" Zara realized she must have looked very sad and out of place. She hesitated, not sure if she should trust a stranger, but his eyes held genuine concern. She nodded slowly and replied in a small voice, I'm okay." Her stomach growled just then, betraying her hunger. The young man smiled gently. "My name is Dio," he said, offering her a piece of bread he had with him. Zara was hungry, so she took the bread and thanked him quietly. She noticed his camera and wondered if he was a journalist or a tourist. Dio told her he lived nearby and often came to the mosque when he couldn't sleep. He didn't pry into Zara's situation, but he let her know she was welcome to stay with the few others until morning. Grateful and tired, Zara managed to smile back. For the first time that night, she felt a small drop of kindness in the big, unknown ocean she had jumped into. But even as she relaxed a little, she couldn't shake the feeling that her troubles were far from over. When morning light filtered through the mosque's doorway, Zara thanked the people there and stepped outside with Dio walking by her side. In the daylight, the neighborhood looked busy but friendly. There were women tying colorful gele headscarves around their heads and carrying baskets, men pushing carts of fruits, and the calls of street hawkers selling bread and newspapers. The air smelled of spices and freshly baked bread. Zara stayed quiet, not sure what to do next. Dio finally asked gently, "You seem lost. Do you have somewhere to go?" Zara bit her lip and decided to trust him with a little bit of her story, though not all. She told him that she left home because things were not good there, and she needed a safe place for a while. Dio listened carefully and nodded, not asking for details she wasn't ready to share. He then offered to take her to his aunt's house nearby, where she could rest and get some food. Zara was hesitant to accept more help, but she had nowhere else to go. She agreed softly. As they walked, Dio told her about the neighborhood. He showed her a small stall where he likes to buy jollof rice, spiced rice, for lunch, and pointed out the community well where people gathered to fetch water and talk. Zara had never seen this side of life in Abuja before. It was hard in some ways, but it also felt warm and real. Still, she kept glancing over her shoulder, afraid that at any moment a black car might appear to drag her back. At Dio's aunt's house, which was really just a couple of small rooms behind a tailor's shop, Zara was welcomed with a warm smile. Dio's Auntie Ifeoma was a plump, cheerful woman, wearing a bright Ankara wrapper and a flour-dusted apron. She was in the middle of frying puff-puff, sweet dough balls, when they arrived. An, Dio, who is this fine girl?" she asked in a musical voice. Zara shyly introduced herself with the fake name Aisha, the first name that came to her mind, because she was still scared of revealing her identity. Auntie Ifeoma didn't pry. She simply said, "Welcome, my dear. Come and eat." She served Zara a plate of hot puff-puff and a cup of zobo, a sweet red drink made from hibiscus. Zara thanked her and ate eagerly. The food tasted like comfort and hope. After eating, exhaustion finally caught up with Zara. Auntie Ifeoma showed her a small mat in the corner where she could lie down. It was not a big soft bed like Zara was used to, but it felt safe, and that was enough. As Zara drifted off to sleep in this humble home, she felt grateful to these kind strangers. Yet, even in her dreams, she could not escape the worry that her father's men might find her. Little did she know that back in her father's mansion, the search for her was growing more desperate. While Zara found a moment of peace, the city was buzzing with news of her disappearance. At her father's mansion, there was an uproar. Zara's mother had found her room empty and her note on the bed. She cried and showed it to Zara's father. He was furious and scared at the same time. How could his only daughter run away? He quickly called his most trusted guards and even contacted the police commissioner, because being a powerful man, he had many connections. They tried to keep the situation quiet to avoid scandal, but it was not easy to hide that the billionaire's daughter was missing. Her father's men split into teams, checking the airport and the bus stations and combing through different parts of Abuja. One of the guards mentioned seeing a figure running in the night, and another reported that an Okada was heard speeding away around that time. Her father slammed his fist on the table, realizing Zara had truly fled. With a stern voice, he ordered them to search every district, Wus, Garki, Asokoro, everywhere. He promised a large reward for anyone who found her. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, flyers with Zara's photograph quietly began circulating among trusted people. In the photo, she looked like a princess. But it would not be so easy to recognize her now, dressed in simple clothes and hidden among everyday people. Yet Zara did not know how determined her father was. Danger was inching closer, even as she tried to start a new life. By afternoon, Zara woke up from her nap to the sound of a distant radio playing and the smell of soup cooking. Auntie Ifeoma had made some egusi soup, melon seed soup, with pounded yam for lunch and invited Zara to join them. As Zara ate, she felt almost at home. The food was delicious and spicy, warming her from inside. Dio sat with them, chatting with his aunt in Igbo and English mixed together. Zara didn't talk much, but she smiled politely. After lunch, Zara insisted on helping clean up. She had never done much housework before. At her father's house, servants did all the cleaning, but she wanted to try. She picked up the broom to sweep, copying how Auntie Ifeoma did it. It was harder than it looked, and sweat soon formed on her forehead, but she felt proud to be doing something on her own. Dio watched her and gave an encouraging nod. He then invited Zara to come with him to the community center, where he volunteered teaching kids how to read in the evenings. Zara agreed and followed him outside. She borrowed a simple dress from Auntie Ifeoma so she wouldn't stand out in her expensive clothing. As she left the house, Zara took a deep breath of the fresh afternoon air. For the first time, she was about to spend a day doing ordinary things like ordinary people. It felt new and a bit scary, but also nice. However, as they walked down the road, a black car slowly drove past them, making Zara's heart stop for a moment. Zara's hand tightened around Dio's arm as she saw the black car roll by. It looked like one of her father's cars, with tinted windows that made it impossible to see who was inside. She quickly turned her face away and pretended to be fixing her sandal strap, heart thudding in her chest. The car moved on, not stopping, and Zara let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Dio noticed her fear. "Are you okay, Aisha?" he asked gently, using the name she had given. Zara forced a smile and nodded, but she knew she had to be more careful. At the community center, Zara helped Dio teach a small group of children the alphabet and simple songs. The kids laughed and clapped as Zara led a song she remembered from her own childhood. For a little while, she forgot about being scared and just enjoyed the moment. Dio even took a photo of Zara smiling with the children, and when she saw the picture, she was surprised at how happy she looked despite everything. Dio told her that she had a natural gift with children and that the kids already adored her. Zara felt a warm glow of pride and happiness. Yet, as the afternoon turned to evening, she noticed Dio frowning at his phone. He had just received a message. When Zara asked what was wrong, he hesitated, then told her softly that there were quiet rumors going around about a wealthy man searching for his missing daughter in the city. Zara's face went pale. Her new life and her old life were on the verge of collision, and she didn't know how long she had before everything fell apart. That night, back at Auntie Ifeoma's, Zara couldn't sleep. She lay on the mat, staring at the shadows on the ceiling. Dio had not pressured her for answers, but she sensed he had guessed the truth about her identity. His kindness and respect made her trust him more, so she decided it was only fair to tell him who she really was and why she ran away. Out in the small courtyard under the stars, Zara quietly shared her story with Dio. She told him her real name and that her father was the wealthy man looking for her. She explained about the arranged marriage and how she felt like a bird trapped in a cage of gold. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she spoke, and Dio listened silently, his eyes full of understanding. When she finished, he gently said, "Everyone deserves to be happy and free, Zara." She was relieved that he didn't get angry or push her away for lying about her name. She quietly apologized for not telling the truth earlier. Dio shook his head and said, "No wahala, no problem," he said softly. He understood her completely. Instead, he vowed to help her in any way he could. At that moment, Zara felt a closeness to Dio that she had never felt with anyone else before. He then admitted something too, that he once left his village to pursue photography in the city against his own parents' wishes. So in a way, he understood her choice. Zara managed to smile through her tears. Under the quiet Abuja night sky, they shared a bond of dreams and courage. But as they sat there, a sudden loud knock came at the compound gate, making Zara jump to her feet in alarm. Auntie Ifeoma hurried to the gate with a lantern, and Dio and Zara stayed back in the shadows, holding their breath. Zara's heart raced, fearful that her father's men had finally tracked her down. "Who is it?" Auntie Ifeoma called out. A gruff voice responded, saying they were police officers doing an overnight check in the area, looking for someone. Dio stepped forward calmly and went to the gate to stand by his aunt. Zara stayed hidden behind a tree in the yard, trying to quiet her trembling. Through the crack in the gate, they could see two uniformed officers. They showed Auntie Ifeoma a flyer. Zara could just barely make out that it was her own face on it. Auntie Ifeoma glanced back toward the yard with worry, but Dio quickly spoke up. He told the officers that they hadn't seen anyone like that around here. His voice was steady, and he even offered them some water to drink to appear helpful. After a tense moment, the officers thanked them and moved on to knock on the next house. When the police finally left, Auntie Ifeoma shut the gate and let out a sigh of relief. She turned to Dio with confusion and concern. "What is going on?" "Who was that girl on the flyer?" she asked. Realizing the time for secrets was over, Zara stepped out of the shadows and took off her headscarf. "It's me," she said in a small voice. Auntie Ifeoma's eyes widened in shock. Zara began to apologize and explain herself, voice shaking, but Auntie Ifeoma simply opened her arms and pulled her into a hug. Zara felt warm tears on her shoulder. Whether they were Auntie Ifeoma's or her own, she wasn't sure. She just knew that even though she had brought danger to their door, these kind people still cared about her. However, the danger was real and getting closer, and Zara knew they might not be able to hide her for much longer. The next morning, Zara knew she had to make a hard decision. Her presence was putting Dio and his aunt in danger, and she couldn't allow that. Her father's reach was long and powerful. If he found out who helped her, their lives could become very difficult. She sat outside on a wooden stool, watching the sunrise paint the sky orange. Dio came to sit next to her. Neither of them spoke for a while. Finally, Zara said softly, "Maybe I should just go back. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me." Her words hung in the air. Dio looked at her with concern and shook his head. "You know what will happen if you go back. You'll be trapped again." "Is that what you really want?" he asked quietly. Zara felt tears in her eyes as she remembered the lonely halls of her father's house and the future that awaited her there. "No," she whispered. She thought of the short time she had spent here, teaching children, learning to sweep a floor, laughing with Dio over a simple meal. It was hard, but it felt honest and real. Dio gently took her hand. "We can find a way. I have a friend who lives far on the outskirts. We could go there for a while," he suggested, trying to give her hope. Zara looked at him and saw the worry and hope in his eyes. Before she could answer, a familiar black car turned the corner at the end of the street, heading their way slowly. Zara's heart thundered in her chest. Time was up. They had to choose right now. Fight, flight, or surrender. She squeezed Dio's hand, her mind racing with the weight of the decision that would change her life forever. The car approached and parked in front of the house. Zara's father stepped out, his face clouded with anger and relief all at once. Behind him were two security men. Dio stood protectively in front of Zara as her father walked up. "Zara, come here this instant," her father commanded, his voice stern but with a tremor that showed he had been scared for her safety. Zara mustered all her courage and stepped forward from behind Dio. Seeing her father in this humble yard, so out of place among the cracked walls and cooking pots, she realized how different her two worlds were. Her father opened his arms as if to hug her, but Zara stayed where she was. "I'm sorry, father," she said, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. "But I can't go back with you." Her father's eyes widened in disbelief. He was not used to anyone, especially his daughter, saying no to him. He glanced at Dio with anger and distrust, then back at Zara. "You're coming home. We'll talk about this inside. I know you think you love this life here, but you belong with your family." "This is not the life for you," he said, trying to sound gentle but unable to hide his frustration. Zara felt tears welling up. She stepped closer and gently took her father's hand, which surprised him. "Father," she said softly, "I have found something here that I never had in our house. I have friends here who care about me for who I am, not because of money or deals. I have love." Her eyes shifted to Dio and then back to her father. "If I go back with you, I lose all of that. I lose myself." Her father's face twisted in conflict. He had always believed he knew what was best. He took a deep breath, and in that moment of silence, Zara knew this was the moment her life would be decided. Zara's father looked at the determination in her eyes and realized she was no longer a little girl he could control. She had grown up, and her will was strong. He could force her into the car. He had the power and the men to do it. But he also saw the gentle way Dio had stepped in front of her, ready to protect her, and Auntie Ifeoma at the door, wringing her hands in worry for Zara, even though they had just met her. Something softened in her father's eyes. Perhaps he remembered why he worked so hard all these years, supposedly for his family's happiness. Here was his daughter, pleading for her own happiness and freedom. With a heavy sigh, he finally spoke. "If you choose this life, you know I cannot support it. You will be on your own." His voice cracked a bit on those last words. Zara nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand," she said. Her father closed his eyes for a moment, then pulled her into a tight hug, surprising her. He whispered, "Be safe, my child." Then, just like that, he let her go and turned back to his car. The two security men looked astonished, but they followed him without a word. Zara watched as the car drove off, a mixture of sadness and joy swirling inside her. She had gotten what she wanted, her freedom, and a chance at love with Dio, but it had come at the cost of breaking her father's heart and leaving her old life behind. Dio stepped forward and held her as she cried softly into his shoulder. The sun climbed higher, shining down on the little yard where everything had changed in one morning. Zara had made her choice, but as she stood there with a new future ahead, one question remained in her heart. Was the price of her freedom worth the pain it caused, and had she truly found the meaning of happiness in the life she chose? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment for more interesting stories.